Okay, so the recording is in progress. This is a quick meeting. So Ian, I'm just going to turn it over to you to kick this off.
Sure, thank you.
Wait,
Yeah,
I guess I need to take a roll call, which
Yeah, we need a roll.
yeah, we need a roll call. All right, I'm sorry, I'm running a little bit short on brain power this morning. Dawn, do you have the agenda in front of you? Can you?
I sure do. You want me to call roll?
Yeah, can you call roll? Thank you.
I certainly can. Alexa Anderson. No? Heather Bout? Oh, she couldn't make it. We got a note from her. Justin Cameron?
Justin's
Bob.
not available.
Okay, Bob Conry. Gail Dowd.
Good morning.
Good morning. Peter Fishalis. Maybe he's running. I saw him last night at Karma and he said he'd be here, so maybe he's running late. Don Gloriello, I'm president. Andrew Perchek.
Present.
Good morning and welcome. Did I already say welcome to you? I think I sent an email, but anyway.
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you. Thank you.
Russ Hughes. Tim Holt, not available. Lori Hunter.
Morning.
Good morning. Mark Howell.
Here.
Good morning. Carrie LaFleur. Pat Nelson.
Said she couldn't make it.
I'm here.
Pat's here. Chris Popoff. Charlie Parker.
Here.
Thank you. Good morning. Matt Root. No Matt. We better check and make sure we have a quorum.
Don Peter is here.
Who is here?
Peter.
Oh, Peter Fishalis. Good morning.
Chris Popoff's here too. I see him.
Oh, okay. Chris Popoff. All right, very good. I think we'll be in good shape then. Did I hear from Matt Root?
It
Matt?
looks like he's just connecting, Dawn.
I see
okay.
him.
Okay, Eric Sims.
Here.
Hi, Eric. And Steve Stashewski.
Morning.
Good morning. All right. All right. You want to take back over, Pat, or do you want me to? I think we're turning over to Hill anyway. So.
Yeah, we're going to turn it over to Hill, and it looks like we have a quorum. So, Ian, you want to take it away?
sure. Thank you. We've got 3 slides for you this morning. So we've been talking about the FF&E process and going out to bid for all the furniture and equipment. And so just wanted to give you an update and come to the committee with a request this morning. You know, just to recap, we had a budget of $1,365,000. That was the approved budget when we went to the town for vote at that point. We've been going through the process of, you know, updating numbers and finalizing selections for furniture. And where we've landed with that is 1.5 million. So it's slightly over budget here. And there's a contingency included in that. We thought it was prudent to have a contingency, a 5% contingency included in that. So that's actually a good portion of the overrun is just the contingency factor. So we're looking at a difference of $165,018. And just wanted to bring it to the committee, talk through it, and you know, hopefully get an approval this morning to do a budget increase, a budget change to cover this value before we go out to bid. So looking at, you know, where would the money come from? It would come from soft cost contingency. And so just wanted to show you what that would look like. So if we were to vote for this morning for the 165,000 increase for FF&E, we will have used 30% of the soft cost contingency. So that number is in the 265. There's a few other soft cost contingency hits earlier in the project. But you'd have a remaining balance of 611,561. So that's kind of high level what we're looking at today. I can turn it over to the project team, turn it over to you guys if you have any questions about the process and how we arrived at these numbers.
Dawn or Pat, could I jump in?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you to.
Oh,
Thank you.
perfect. Thank you. So just so there's a little history on how we got to this number. When FF&E was first totaled up after we went through the multiple sessions with the FF&E design team and furniture professionals, we were actually almost $500,000 over. So I think it's important to tell you that. Justin and I went back through and made reductions. We swapped out some furniture choices that were in every room, and that made a significant change. Probably the biggest one spot we reduced was the instrument purchases for the music department. So we're going to need to tap the boosters or other sources if we see we have massive instrument needs. Of the 165, I also want to highlight that almost 80,000 of that is the library shelving that got bumped over when we VE'd it out of the base project. So, you know, there's some trickle down that's happening here as well that's causing the overage. So we thought we did the best we could to get this to budget without educational impact. We didn't want to come to you with an ask for 500,000 of contingency. That didn't seem realistic. So this is for your consideration today.
Thank you. Are there questions from the committee? Steve?
How did you, or who comes up with the actual numbers?
I can start that answer. Oh, Ian, go ahead and start. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the FF&E consultant. So SMMA, they're under SMMA's purview here. And they're the ones that came up with the estimates.
And it's based on historical data, or are they sourcing costs for, budget proposals from vendors and suppliers?
Yeah, they're sourcing, costs from suppliers. I mean, they do schools all day long, so they have a lot of projects going. So they do have a lot of knowledge on current pricing.
I think
And so I'm just wondering, why would we not just go out to bid and see what the numbers are then, and then vote on whether or not we need to increase the budget for FF&E? Is there a reason that we would do this now versus later?
Yeah, you have to have the funding to go out to bid. We can
Okay.
accept a lower bid and then give you back the money that you approve if that's how it goes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
You wouldn't, okay, so it wouldn't be proper to go in knowing that it's probably over budget and then find out that it is over budget and then ask if okay.
Yeah.
So that makes sense, the timing and all that for me now.
I mean, I'll just add your
Okay.
source question is great, Steve. I pushed really hard on them to be sure I was getting good price. Like, Jen, how many times did I push back on those desks? I'm like, what vendors are we using here that's giving us this cost, and what are we getting for the cost? We were pretty deep in the weeds trying to really maximize the money.
Lori, I think I'm correct in thinking that the ultimate, so that the consultant is giving us some prices, but it's the educational team that has determined the FF&E that we need to run the school as it's going to be built.
Correct. We've had multiple iterations with the consultants where the middle school staff has come through department by department, and then in between and afterwards, Justin and I have sat with them separately to vet what the staff wanted and tweak and, adjust that. But yeah, this is all educationally driven by the educators in our district with guidance from the from the professionals.
And were there any, just to give a flavor for these discussions, were there any difficult decisions that had to be made that as you cut this back, and sort of, can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Particular departments we looked at because their requests were larger, nature of the department. Music for sure. We're gonna bring risers over rather than buying new fancy ones. Like I said, we reduced all the instrument purchases, which is a pretty significant impact. We looked hard at the art department. We even asked the custodial team to go back and look at what they could or couldn't live with. They reduced by at least one piece of equipment. Like I mentioned, we looked, the classroom pattern was really important because it multiplies by such a high number. So we reviewed that at least twice to look at what was a baseline for every classroom setup with teachers and students. We purchased lower cost desks because that obviously multiplies by 700. So there's been a lot of vetting over the last 6 to 8 months, even I would say, trying to get this number as solid as we could.
Thanks, Lori.
Sure.
Mark, I see your hand up.
So, when does this go out to bid? And how soon would we expect to get real numbers back?
Lori, do you want me to jump in? on
Yeah,
that?
Gail, I think, go ahead.
So the bidding will open on June 17th. So we're working on all of the advertisements now. We did not want to do that until we had this meeting. The bids are due back July 1st. So we anticipate coming back to the July committee meeting with an update and a recommendation for us to be able to move forward.
Okay. And just as a general sort of comment about how this is being run, I think what Ian summarized was helpful, but I would expect at least a memo to be included in our package so that by way of preparation, we could understand the basics of what we're going to be doing. I mean, I couldn't really process the numbers because I didn't know where it was starting from. So clearly this has been in the works for a little while. So a one pager would be useful also for the public and for the minutes. Some kind of memo from the procurement agent or the FF&E consultant might be really useful to just put this into context for the history of the project. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Matt.
Thanks, Pat. I guess, yeah, can you just expand a little more on that bidding and how it works? I mean, it's a public bid, right? We'll get at least 3 bidders. There'll be sealed bids. I mean, isn't this, presumably bidders will be aware of this extension that we provide, right? So this will kind of become the de facto price. I mean, is there any protection that we can get in order to make sure that we're getting the lowest bid?
So great question. Pat, is it okay if I jump in?
Oh yeah, please do, Gail.
So we will be advertising it. It is going out under Chapter 30B, so it will be advertised paper, our website. It'll be on Combines. It'll be in the central registry. We also have, there are vendors on the state bid list who are already reaching out, asking us when this will be advertised. Also, there are various consortiums available as well. So there will be a lot of different price points. We do anticipate receiving multiple bids, and the way it's done is it's by category. So we also have the ability to look at vendors by each specific category and are able to award it individually. So we're ensuring we're getting the best price per category as we go through it.
Great, thanks, Gail.
Any other questions from the committee? Charlie, I see your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted you to say more. You mentioned something about shelving and VE and something was put back in. Would you say more about that, or did I mishear what you were saying? I think, Laura,
Jen,
you made those comments.
Sure, yeah, yes, you did hear that right, Charlie. Jen, could you talk through that a little bit more on?
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, where I mean, so So what Lori was talking about with the library shelving, during value engineering, during the design process, we had, or the committee had voted to reallocate the library shelving, particularly the shelving that's built into the walls. We had originally had that as part of the construction project, and as a way to bring down the construction project's overall costs, because we were running into some overages there at that time. We had said, let's push that over, purchase those through the FF&E budget. So that was one of the reasons why we were running into overages here in the FF&E budget. There was also cafeteria tables that we originally had, during design, had earmarked for possible salvage and reuse. But as we went through the process, we decided to, purchase new tables as part of this FF&E. There were a lot of other miscellaneous sort of adjustments that happen once we do original budgets very early on in the project, which sort of establish what that FF&E budget is. And, once we get to the point of during this phase and meeting with all of the staff and really sitting down and planning out what, all the pieces of furniture. There were just a lot of ads, but also a lot of areas where we were below. So I think one of the things in the classrooms, I just point out, the teachers really wanted 2 sit-to-stand desks instead of 1. So multiplied by classrooms, that adds up.
We reduced that now, Jen, though. It's down to 1.
Oh, to 1. Okay.
So how much of the overage was actually in the shelving? In other words, the shelving situation was kind of precast by that previous vote. I'm just again wondering how much, if you could just restate.
For the tall shelf, the actual tall shelving that we moved over to the FF&E, it was about $40,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Steve?
Yeah, the shelving thing sparked a memory that the way I recall it, it was similar to exactly what SMMA just said. The custom millwork option for shelving in the library at the time seemed to be the premium way to go about it, when a pre-made furniture piece could be sourced at any level. So we could have an $80,000 shelf, or we could have a $40,000 shelf, due to the prefabrication of those shelves. And it seemed like at the time the best way to go about reducing the overall cost of the project is shifting that from a millwork to a furniture item would be a savings in general. I don't remember what the savings was of the millwork item in the VE step, but I definitely remember that being the kind of context of that decision. So I think it's appropriate that we keep it. And I'm not saying, I agree with the thought, Charlie. I don't know if you have notes about what we saved as compared to the $40,000 here.
I have it.
Interesting.
I'm trying to pull it up here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly kind of goes back to what the previous comment was about the preparation. If there's like a list of things, that way we can do a little research on the back end and be really comfortable with the vote. But
yeah, it was a $75,000 accepted value to move this fixed furniture to FF&E. So there was, some savings realized still, but just not 75. Okay, right. So it was 35.
is there a way to look at the music instruments again and say if there's an add alternate lists? I don't know if there's like any kind of pain point from the music department about reducing the amount of instruments, but that seems like an educational impact to me, but I don't know any of the specifics about it. I don't know if there's a wish list that could be kind of narrowed down and added to the budget to see if we were able to maybe capture back some violins or something like that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that a lot. They feel there is a pain point there because we had sort of deferred some replacements, expecting this would be where we could do it. I think if the committee wants to talk adults, you could to give me a number and we could, you know, slate the bigger. My sense is it's probably the bigger items, the tubas and literally bigger because they're more expensive. That'll be harder to fundraise for or longer to fundraise for if the committee wanted to look at adults. So I'll leave that to you to discuss.
Lori, can you just explain how, I'm not familiar with how the musical instruments are handled in the musical instrument department. Does every child get an instrument who wants to play in the band, or is it a?
No,
As
no,
an
most kids are renting theirs. We have some on site for, I mean, the tubas, like you don't carry a tuba back and forth too often typically. So we have some that we house. And then there's some extras around for those kids who might forget something, or we need a backup for a broken one or something like that. So by no means do we provide instruments to every child. In fact, the parent community is already subsidizing that pretty
Okay.
much
Can I just
pretty
say
much
I watched
extensively. Yeah.
4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade band last night.
Yeah.
There were drums bigger than these kids.
Yeah.
Like they're enormous, and there's no way those kids are taking them back and forth. Same with some of the larger instruments, but it was awesome to see them playing them.
Yeah.
So for what it's worth, like that is what comes of this. Like my daughter plays trumpet. We own it because we bought it. We rented it and then bought it. And so that's smaller, but these big, huge instruments, and a lot of them play multiple. Like they were switching the honors band and everything. They were changing instruments. So, I mean, those big instruments are large.
So we'll have to bring what we have and then work on the fundraising with the Music Association for whatever the project doesn't cover. Like I said, we had deferred some things out of, you know, not putting it in the budget, expecting this to be an option, but I'll leave to you what your comfort level is there, given we're already into contingency.
I guess I'll just comment that, you know, the music, the arts, that is such a key part of educating the whole child in the middle school ages, and something that we were really committed to as a committee. I don't know how easy it is to raise money for science and math equipment. Certainly probably easier to raise money for music equipment, but I just want to recognize that it's the arts that sometimes seem to pay more for the expenses that we think we have to cut.
Yeah, I'll just give you the number.
Yeah.
I agree with all of that. Part of why we went to this is it's $100,000 item that was in the budget that, you know, so just scope, there's obviously a lot of room between 0 and 100,000 to figure out what your level of comfort might be, but it's a big ticket to replace all the instruments that had been slated.
For what it's worth, I'll just repeat what one of the band instructors said last night. They're seeing a huge uptick. Like the 6th grade band was smaller than 4th and 5th because they're coming out of COVID, having not done 4th and 5th grade band potentially. So the 4th grade band and the 5th grade band are much larger, and they're the ones that are feeding into this new building. So for what it's worth, like that was, when he said it, I was like, oh yeah, huh. Like he's saying like it's normalized again because COVID is kind of, you know, not in the rearview mirror, but less prevalent. So for what it's worth, those groups looked much bigger than the 6th grade, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Virtual music during pandemic wasn't so appealing. So, right.
And just a quick question, how much time has gone by since those initial estimates now, so that we can sort of get a sense of how much inflation is just playing into all of this?
The original schematic design, the original estimates were done during schematic design, so probably several years ago. And they do try to factor in some level of escalation, but it's hard to determine that exactly.
Anybody else with a question? Thanks, Lori. I appreciate you all going into some detail and helping us understand how these decisions are made, and the level of investigation that went into this. Really appreciate that. I'm wondering if we need to vote on this, and do we need a motion? Does anyone have an answer for that?
Yeah, that was the intent this morning, is to make a motion and to vote to increase the budget by 165,000. Yes,
And that's to be sourced from soft cost contingency?
that's correct.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to increase the budget by $165,018 from soft cost contingency
For FF&E.
for FF&E, sorry.
There we
Second
go.
it.
Do I hear a second?
Yes.
Oh, Mark
Second.
seconded. Okay.
Pat, one other comment that I think the committee might find valuable. We'd been also trying to be sure we had the technology FF&E information in hand, because we needed to know where that budget stood. Good news is that budget's running on budget. So we don't expect another ask for contingency there. So we were pretty relieved and thrilled that when you get that number any minute now, we're wrapping it up tomorrow probably, we look to be on track there. So there won't be a second ask. And we wanted to be sure we had the big picture before we brought it here.
Which raises just a question for me. I'm just curious, what are the other areas that soft cost contingency could get tapped? Do we have any anticipation where?
Yeah, so we would generally use soft cost contingency for any contract extensions or cost increases for any of the designer OPM fees, the consultants, the testing agencies, the commissioning agent, kind of all the professionals, and any extensions or increases in cost there. We would use it for what we're talking about today with FF&E and technology.
Is moving in there?
Moving is in there as well. We
another
think we have
area.
a healthy budget for moving already, so we don't anticipate needing to use soft cost contingency for that. Utility fees, we think we're in good shape with utility fees. But those are generally the areas that you would look to soft cost contingency for.
And did I hear you say we'll have 600,000 left in the soft cost?
That's right.
contingencies?
Yep. Yeah, we'll still have 600,000 left.
Okay. All right. Okay, are we ready for a vote? And Dawn, I'm gonna ask you to,
Matt's got his hand up.
oh, I'm sorry, Matt.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Don. Sorry, just one question along those lines, Ian. It would be helpful to understand, and I guess this is directed to Jen, to you, in terms of what we own in terms of your guidance for the kind of 12 months after construction, for just kind of review and commissioning and making sure the thing's up and running. So if we could have details just to make sure we feel like we're well covered in terms of that post occupancy period.
Yeah, I think the quick answer to that is we do feel that we're covered on that. That's something that we baked into the contracts. So
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, ready to vote? You need me to call it, Pat?
Yeah, I do.
Still have the agenda.
you.
Yep, yeah, no problem. I don't think Alexa joined, nor Heather. Peter Fashalis.
Yes.
Thank you. Don Goriello, I'm a yes. Andrew Herchuk.
Yes.
Thank you. Tim Holt. Oh, Tim's not with us. Lori Hunter,
Yes.
Mark Howell,
Yes.
Pat Nelson,
Yes,
Chris Popoff,
Yes.
Charlie Parker,
Yes.
Matt Root,
Yes.
Steve Stashewski.
Yes.
Looks like it passes. Thank you, guys.
thank you.
How would we go about
Thank you.
adding, how would we go about adding an alternate of some kind or some avenue to look at the music instruments again? Is that outside of, could Hill come with some kind of proposal at the review of the bids that shows some sort of musical instrument scope that could be then bid out using some contingency funding? That way we can have another discussion about the musical instruments.
You have to do it like public bid where you have to do it ahead of time with an alternate. An add or a deduct. You can't get the bid and then make deducts. I mean, I suppose you could, if you're over, you can not buy it, but go
Yeah.
ahead, Hill, I'll let you.
Right, but there's no scope developed right now that would be maybe in the $50,000 range, right? So how do we develop a scope that's in the middle, or do we?
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we can bid this out separately if we want to, right? So you could just come up with a separate package for the musical instruments and bid it as like a secondary bid. I don't believe there's any competing interest with what we're doing now and bidding this out again. So yeah, I mean, if that is something that you would like us to pursue, we could certainly work with the consultant to do that, to scope that, and to think about what that would cost on a bid level.
Right, so it seems like we took $100,000 out of the musical instrument budget. Could we just, as a committee, and Don and Pat, leave me, if you think I'm out of line, let me know, but I think we should kind of help be sure that we're getting the right musical instrument set for the project and for the kids. And if that was a pain point, I'd hate to see it be cut out of the budget and never brought into the budget again. And we have the full amount of the project to do the right thing. And I think that's one of the areas that we might want to reconsider making sure that we're doing the right thing. And so if there's a scope that makes sense.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I thought you were done. I was going to say if there was a scope that was cut, then it should be fairly easy to put it, if we want to see what the real pricing looks like, to have that as the either a separate bid, as Ian's saying. I guess I'm not as clear on how you guys are dividing out the bids, but that, or as an ad alternate. What was the scope of the 100,000 that was cut? Does anyone know?
Yeah, sure. We have the itemized list. If anyone has it handy, it might take us a bit to pull it up, but it was literally an itemized list of instruments.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. That's like, we have that, right? If it was cut and we know what it was, then in theory, it's easy enough to have it be a separate bid if we want to see real numbers, or again, as an ad alternate to the larger. I guess I'll let the professionals figure out the best way to do it.
Yeah, you can set it up either way. I just didn't know if there was a desire to see where exactly we land with this first bid, and then reconsider it, or you can do it as an add-on, you can do it as a separate bid. So
yeah, it's also from a timing perspective, because there's no real installation or construction associated with procuring more musical instruments. It seems like the kind of thing that we could wait on and make sure that nothing else has gone south on us before we make such a commitment. But I think it's worth it, keeping it on a list of things that got dropped and we might want to revisit before the project closes.
I agree, and this sounds like new business to me, that we're looking to keep track of things that we are committed to, but we've made decisions on, like this contingency budget, taking money from the contingency for FF&E to visit later. But I think that's a really good idea. We come in under budget and we can buy some tubas. I think that would be wonderful. Okay, I didn't see on the agenda citizens' comments, but we do have some citizens. Do we have anything from the citizens who are with us this morning? Or the non-committee members. Okay, next steps. Ian, when's our next meeting?
the next meeting's on the 20th.
Okay.
That's our regularly scheduled committee meeting.
Okay. Then I think we can close this meeting. We do, like I said, I don't have all my brain yet this morning. Do we do a roll for closing the meeting, or do we just say we'll close?
No, you lose
Just call
quorum
it.
when the meeting's over. There's a
Okay.
motion to adjourn. You could do that, and then once we lose quorum, it's over.
Okay, meeting's over. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye,
guys.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day, guys.